is the life of parties he has never attended. If opportunity knocks and he's not home, opportunity waits. When in Rome, they do as he does. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always ruin things, but when I do, I prefer the Great Reset. Stay awake, my friends.
Of course, as I've been trying to say for 4 years now, there is no pandemic. There was no pandemic, and there will be no pandemic. And it's like Jay said, the RNA can't pandemic. It can't. And there's no reason to discuss this anymore because it's clear. And if it's clear, we shouldn't waste time talking about it.
The rules, protect yourself at all times. Follow my instructions. Keep it clean, touch gloves if you wish, let's do it.
Sweaty palms.
This is so crazy. Like goosebumps. This is so crazy. I feel so nervous. Like, what in the world, man?
With Paul was amazing, JJ.
Wow,
Really,
that's a very nice compliment. Thank you very much. Can you hear me better now or not?
Yes, much better.
It was really like it nailed down two things for me, but I finally really understand the infectious clone idea, and I think it's very, very likely what happened.
There's all kinds of ways to gain the confidence of somebody, and flattery is one of them. There's all kinds of ways to gain the confidence of somebody, and flattery is one of them.
These people seem to be very, very resistant to recognizing that Secretary Kennedy and Marty and Jay are operating in a very complicated political landscape, and they just don't have the latitude to act unilaterally. These people seem to be very, very resistant to recognizing that Secretary Kennedy and Marty and Jay are operating in a very complicated political landscape.
But you can tell if someone's lying, you can sort of feel it in people. And I have lied. I'm sure I'll lie again. I don't want to lie, I don't think I'm a liar. I try not to be a liar. I don't want to be a liar. I think it's really important not to be a liar.
I think truth is good for kids. We're so busy lying, we don't even recognize the truth no more in society. We want everybody to feel good. That's not the way life is.
Now, Dr. Gallo and Dr. Fauci talked a lot about isolation and purification. Can you tell me what the difference is between the two?
Isolation, what was it?
Isolation and purification.
Of the virus?
Yes.
Well, you isolate a virus by finding the virus which causes a disease. You purify a virus by making a lot of, just by purifying it so you get a pure virus.
Okay.
I don't understand what the issue.
They interchanged the two, and I wasn't sure
I see.
If it was the same thing or if it was two totally different.
No, it depends on how they use it.
Okay. Can you explain the process of HIV isolation?
Well, didn't Dr. Gallo do that? He actually isolated it. So,
yeah.
Why should I do all of this? This is all textbook stuff you're asking me.
The specialization should make you suspicious. It should, because if it's gotten harder to evaluate what's going on, then it's presumably gotten easier for people to lie and to exaggerate, and then one should be a little bit suspicious, and that's sort of my starting bias.
Hello, everyone. This is your HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Hold on 1 second. He just happened to walk in. This is the little shitter. Mikey seems to be doing a little bit better. I'm not sure if he passed some kind of silicone insert in many pieces, or if it was like a dryer, like these pellets that you dry things with, or if he chewed up a bottle in all the same size pieces. I don't know what came out of him yesterday, very late night on a walk. But I have this water bottle that I've been carrying around because he's been having this very liquid, yucky, sprayy, stinky stuff that I rinse away with the water bottle. And so when I rinsed this away, I couldn't really tell what I was dealing with. But it could have been anything from like a dryer sheet that he had chewed up, or maybe a washing machine sheet that he chewed up. And it just, I think it caused a temporary blockage, but I think he's kind of okay now. He doesn't act the way he did the last couple days, which is really great. So he's back on his full feed, and he's playing with Ruby and stuff, and so all is well. And I'm gonna let him, he's probably not gonna stay here because he's too hot in here for him, but the back door's open, so he likes to hear it. But it's definitely okay. We're not gonna have to do anything drastic or anything like that. Let me just slide back over here. I'm a little unfamiliar with the controls because I've had a few days off. I have not turned on this studio computer in 3 days, which has been kind of a nice thing. I cracked a little bit over the weekend, and I mean that in a a very humble way. This situation and these past 6 years have driven me pretty close to the limit of what I can tolerate as an adult before I will behave irrationally. And I think part of what you saw in my last couple streams that people have been sending me emails about swearing and using the F word and this kind of thing, this is all part of that. It's all part of me being at the heart of something that really no one else can understand like I understand, except for the people who are dead. I think Brandy Vaughn and Tony Bark probably understand very well what I've been involved with. And the only ridicule that anyone can make of me is to say that they knew that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was fake when I was taking a paycheck from him. But somehow or another, then, they don't want to be my ally. They don't want to take the step and say, hey, that means that now, even if it's late, Jay now agrees, and he is in that book. So we could use Jay as a way to finally debunk this guy's act. But instead, the people that say that I'm too late to the party say that I'm just faking, that I'm still, I guess, taking money from them or something like that. Maybe I'm even more deep state than they are. I don't know. But this is really where we are, and I'll confess it as quickly as anyone would ever want me to. One of the reasons why I'm winning is because I've always been brutally honest on my stream, with myself, with my family. I don't work hard to keep secrets because it's really easy. If you just tell the truth all the time, you don't have to remember jack shit. And so for me, the last few weeks have been a sort of, slow crescendo to, holy cow, I can't believe it. I haven't gotten pissed in a really long time. And so I will admit it. I gave in, and I told people to F off, and I told people everything. And it wasn't my best hours, but the message is still quite the same. These people, rich and poor, connected all around the world, have for one reason or another been employed, sometimes for longer than a year, to control me, to influence me, to monitor me. And most of the time, these people were deployed in groups on Signal, groups on Zoom, groups of all part of an organization or a writing crew or a DM group on Twitter, or the list is endless, a steering committee. And so what you have here is a very elaborate illusion, which was never possible before the ubiquitous use of social media as a prime source of information. Because social media, unlike the printed form, which to a certain extent stays stable once it's printed, has to, or used to have to, VHS recordings, this kind of thing. The way that the internet works is that the NSA, if necessary, could flip the entire content of the New York Times website in an instant. And you would never know had you not clicked the instant before and seen it flip. That's the reality of every website that's controlled by, monitored by, or linked to the government, or many of these platforms in any way. They can just flip the content. And so even the people that use the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive and stuff, I'm very skeptical of the Wayback Machine, simply because the Wayback Machine, accepted as what it purports to be, which is that I have to go to the internet and click on something and then tell the Wayback Machine to save it, and then there's an archive there, it leaves open the obvious opportunity for somebody to insert a history of a website that didn't exist and make it look like a website's been there for a very long time when in fact it hasn't, and even change the content of that website and make it look like it said something else. All of these things are possible once people accept the premise of the Wayback Machine. And so for me, this whole landscape has become one great big theater, and on the back of and on the support of and facilitated by the magic of that theater, these people are able to engage wholly in a script, just believe in it and enact it. And what's being revealed by some of the people, including, I think, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is that they have been on this script for quite some time. They've trusted in this script for quite some time. I think that's the best way to explain how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. became part of the anti-vaccine movement in America in the first place. I think that in his own best interest, he thought it would be better for him just to remain an environmental activist and, maybe occasionally guest speak at one of these events, but not head up an organization, not change his World Mercury Project to Children's Health Defense. That probably is not something that he wanted to do, but because he's required to trust in the script, in 2017, that's what happened. And so here we now have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the head of HHS, and he's going to tell us about the WHO and the amendments to the WHO. And so what I would like you to do is just take this as an opportunity to do an exercise where you try to, stay focused on the biology. Don't take their bait, and really try to listen, to hear what it is he says exists, what it is that he's teaching you, and what it is that is presumed by the words that he uses and the statements that he's making, because that's how you're going to be able to see through Robert Malone's really dumb script. So I'm just going to start with this as a practice session. I'm going to try and put a practice session in all the time in the beginning. Not sure if I said that. I did. Great.
I want to speak to you today about a controversial issue that could directly impact you and your family during a global health emergency. Last year, the World Health Organization's governing body made some far-reaching amendments to its international health regulations, otherwise known as the IHR regulations. These regulations establish the legal framework that gives countries rights and responsibilities for managing public health events with global impact. The deadline to reject these amendments is next week, and we are rejecting them. So I'd like to explain to you why. The first reason is national sovereignty. Nations who accept the new regulations are signing over their power in health emergencies to an unelected international organization that could order lockdowns, travel restrictions, or any other measures it sees fit. In fact, it doesn't even need to declare an emergency. Potential public health risks are enough for it to initiate action. If we're going to give the WHO that much power, we should at least invite a thorough public debate, especially since the agreement is an official treaty and it bypasses the U.S. Senate, which plays a key role in ensuring major international commitments receive proper democratic oversight. To make matters worse, the new regulations employ extremely broad language that gives the WHO unprecedented power. They require countries to establish systems of risk communication so that the WHO can implement unified public messaging globally. That opens the door to the kind of narrative management and propaganda and censorship that we saw during the COVID pandemic. We don't want to see that kind of system institutionalized even further. The agreement also contains provisions about global systems of health IDs, vaccine passports, and a centralized medical database. It lays the groundwork for global medical surveillance of every human being. Maybe if the WHO were an infallible authority, untainted by industry influence, we would consider accepting the new regulations. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic demonstrated otherwise. During COVID, the WHO failed to enforce the international health regulations that were already in place for generations. China withheld critical information about the outbreak for at least a month and faced no real consequences or criticism from WHO. As the 2024 Congressional Oversight Report put it, the WHO was misinformed, denied access to China, and used as a cover for the Chinese Communist Party's reckless action. These and other atrocities make one thing clear. We must strengthen national and local autonomy to hold global organizations in check and to restore a real balance of power. Underneath all the bureaucratic language, what's at stake here is a vision for our future. Are we going to be subjects to a technocratic control system that uses health risks and pandemic preparedness as a Trojan horse to curtail basic democratic freedoms? Do we want a future where every person, every movement, every transaction, and every human body is under surveillance at all times? Now, I don't want to be too alarmist. The new regulations aren't in themselves medical totalitarianism. In fact, they were perhaps written with good intentions, but they are definitely a step in the wrong direction. That's why we're rejecting the amendments, not only on behalf of our own citizens, but the whole world. After all, America could simply ignore the WHO, but few other countries are as powerful as the United States. Even though many of these amendments are phrased to be non-binding, as a practical matter, it's hard for many countries to resist them, especially when they are dependent on the WHO funding and its partnerships. That's why we're taking leadership to stop an agreement that's bad for the entire world. I want to be clear that in rejecting these amendments, President Trump and I are not rejecting international cooperation. We can cooperate with other nations without jeopardizing our civil liberties, without undermining our Constitution, and without ceding away America's treasured sovereignty. That's my commitment to you. That's President Trump's commitment to you. Thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless our country.
So let me switch over. This is actually the way I need to do it, is switch over like this. And now let's listen to it again. Let's listen to it again, but this time let's put the whole thing into context here. Let me get my arrow in the right place, put this over the top of my head here. And I'll pause it every once in a while just so you can see what I wrote down. Now, my handwriting is not the best because I was trying to take notes while I was listening, but I think it'll be enough for me to remember most of what I was thinking while I was listening to it. So here we go. Let's try it again. Oh, that's not. I need one more click over here. Sorry, my bad.
Hello, everyone. This is your HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. I want to speak to you today about a controversial issue that could directly impact you and your family during a global health emergency. Last year, the World Health Organization's governing body made some far-reaching amendments to its international health regulations, otherwise known as the IHR regulations. These regulations establish the legal framework that gives countries rights and responsibilities for managing public health events with global impact.
So that's pretty extraordinary because he's using their language, their provided language, to tell you what the WHO does and what the international health regulations do. And so they're amending these things. Now, when he says they're going to reject the amendments, that's like almost a semantic enchantment, which tells everybody listening to him that we have already accepted the IHR. We're just not going to accept these amendments. Later in this discussion, he's going to point out that the World Health Organization at the beginning of the pandemic failed to enforce World Health Organization regulations that were already in place. Now, I already find myself asking, and one of my viewers found himself asking when I sent this video to him, what in the world is he doing here? Isn't this just grandstanding? Because Donald Trump is getting out of the WHO anyway. We're not giving them any money anyway. One of the ways that a country like the United States would influence an organization like the WHO would be to dangle a bunch of money in front of their face and say, hey, we're not going to fund you unless you turn down these things. But if we reject the amendments while at the same time we're not going to give them any money, or we're not going to be in the WHO, then what difference does it make if we reject it? It seems like there's a broken message here. And I think that's by design, because remember, they're all on one dumb script, and they're all have been sticking to it, some of them for longer than a decade.
The deadline to reject these amendments is next week, and
There's a deadline, and it's next week. You see, it's an enchantment. It's real.
Are rejecting them. So I'd like to explain to you why. The first reason is national sovereignty. Nations who accept the new regulations are signing over their power in health emergencies to an unelected international organization that could order lockdowns, travel restrictions, or any other measures it sees fit. In fact, it doesn't even need to declare an emergency. Potential public health risks are enough for it to initiate action.
So that's interesting, because he's making an argument about them not even really having to have numbers. And what's really funny about that is that the PrEP Act allows the Secretary of Health and Human Services to declare a health emergency, which suspends several fundamental rights in the United States on the rational basis test alone, which is he just doesn't have to. It just has to be a feeling, a hunch. He just has to not be crazy. And he's an American lawyer who's telling you about what the WHO is going to do, but he's never explained the CHD organization that he used to be the president of or the CEO of has never explained. And in fact, Catherine Watt and Sasha Latipova, while they howl about the PrEP Act emergency, have never really succinctly explained that the PrEP Act could be struck as unconstitutional by any federal court if they were to come to the realization that the PrEP Act allows an unelected official, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, go speak of the devil, to declare a health emergency under the rational basis test alone. And any American lawyer worth their salt knows what I'm talking about. Quite frankly, any L1 law student knows what I'm talking about when I say that the unelected Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could declare a health emergency and not be held to strict scrutiny. And if there are L1 or L2 law students who don't know what I'm talking about right now, then you're at a failing law school. Because these are fundamental principles of American law. He's talking out of his scripted, he's got a hand in his back making him say these things. They all have a hand in their back making them say these things while not telling you that the PrEP Act is unconstitutional because it allows an unelected official to suspend several fundamental rights without being held to strict scrutiny, nor the government being held to strict scrutiny. You don't have to meet any criteria that were established beforehand, nothing. One time it could be because the Health and Human Services Secretary has done some weather measurements and some virology estimates. And another time it could be because the Health and Human Services Secretary's done a lot of traveling and heard a lot of things around the world during his traveling. And then when he got home, he heard some stuff on TV and decided it was time because the president called him and asked him. That's the rational basis test. Doesn't require anything other than the guy not to be crazy. To have whatever a reasonable, if you say that I've seen news reports all around the world, that would be reasonable enough. And all bets are off. And then they say, well, we should just end the PrEP Act emergency. And that's very specifically not saying anything about the PrEP Act being unconstitutional, that the whole law should just go. And this guy is scripted to talk about the WHO, which is kind of a formality, a show. They make the argument that because it's a treaty that it's part of the Constitution, but I think that's a pretty weak argument in general. The only way that it would go forward as something like that would be, then it would be unconstitutional because it would be violating all these other laws, and it would be just as dumb as the PrEP Act, except the PrEP Act is in law already. That's the problem. So without a proper judicial challenge, then that will effectively never be, you'll never even be able to touch that wall, never mind knock it down. As long as Aaron Siri is steering everybody to the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program or the CICP or whichever one he wants it to be next so that he gets all of his fees paid, then we're never going to have somebody take this to court to try and sue those people, to have somebody tell them that, you can't file suit here because it is you have to, I can't hear your suit. You have to take it to this administrative court. And then you make the declaration to a federal circuit court that, hey, this is a violation of my right to sue for damages over $20, dude. What the hell's going on here? I just don't think that we're anywhere near getting free until we realize that there is an elaborate script and a well-trained, rehearsed group of people that has auditioned for the last 5 years, practiced for the last 5 years, and absorbed everybody that they possibly could who had a weakness or a vulnerability or a need. And they even tried to do it to me because that's why I am in this guy's book. That's why after working for him for a year and 2 months and then working for his nonprofit for another 6 months, I am telling you that those people are all scripted frauds. And unfortunately, that means that they haven't saved very many kids. And in fact, that fraud may have killed people, especially with regard to the COVID transfections that they could have stopped in 2020 had they had their, real message straight, had their message been based on the OG, Tony Bark and Brandy Vaughn instead of, I don't know, whatever Suzanne Humphreys and Mary Holland are doing now.
Going to give the WHO that much power, we should at least invite a thorough public debate, especially since the agreement is an official treaty and it bypasses the U.S. Senate.
So there he's also reinforcing this idea that, if we don't do it, we're screwed because it's already part of U.S. law. And I don't really think that this is totally, completely true. And if it is, then it's something that can definitely be litigated. That there's just no way that this is true in this way. I just don't think so. And the fact of the matter is he's telling you it is because that's a scripted part of this. He's trying to make sure that you think that the WHO is indeed relevant. The WHO does have this power because it is a treaty that bypasses the Senate. How does it bypass the Senate? I don't get that. Because they're making amendments and the Senate should have to approve them? So is he advocating for the Senate to approve them? He's about to say that, this is not quite global totalitarianism, but it's almost going to be. And so, maybe we would let this happen if they were good guys that didn't have conflicts of interest. But since they have conflicts of interest, we're not going to go for this total global totalitarianism. I mean, it's absurd what this guy says.
Which plays a key role in ensuring major international commitments receive proper democratic oversight. To make matters worse, the new regulations employ extremely broad language that gives the WHO unprecedented power. They require countries to establish systems of risk communication so that the WHO can implement unified public messaging globally. That opens the door to the kind of narrative management and propaganda and censorship that we saw during the COVID pandemic. We don't want to see...
Now remember, this is part of the enchantment. He's supposed to be telling you the truth because they didn't tell you the truth. And so within that limited spectrum of debate, we're supposed to believe that a likely lab leak was covered up by Tony Fauci, who actually funded it, boomeranged the funding through a nonprofit called USAID and Eco Health Alliance and Peter Daszak, like Kevin McCarran was saying in 2020 and like Kevin McKernan said on the Danny Jones podcast in 2024. This is all one silly script. I fell for it too because I thought 60 Minutes was a real news program back in the day.
That kind of system institutionalized even further. The agreement also contains provisions about global systems of health IDs, vaccine passports, and a centralized medical database. It lays the groundwork for global medical surveillance of every human being. Maybe if the...
Remember, you have to ask yourself, why in the world would they want that? It's not to sell things. Because along with that, the hidden layer of this that Claire Craig knows all about, that Kevin McKernan knows all about, that everybody associated with genomes and genome processing and diagnosis know, that they intend to sequence every person as often as possible, to sequence their microbiome as often as they possibly can, to create a remnant streams of all sorts and kinds that will be useful for this. And then using AI and other things, they will de-identify that data and match it back with those living health records from all these national databases under a national or global priority of health. So they're going to need a lot of computers. They're going to need a lot of power. And they're going to need all of that shit before these people are gone, before these population pyramids collapse. That's what's happening here. And he's down with it.
WHO were an infallible authority, untainted by industry influence. We would consider accepting the new regulations.
Oh, maybe we would consider accepting the new regulations if they weren't a tainted organization.
Stop lying!
Unbelievable.
Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic demonstrated otherwise. During COVID, the WHO failed to enforce the international health regulations that were already in place for generations.
So the WHO is not that big a deal because it doesn't enforce anything anyway? The other confusing thing that my friend pointed out, which I think is a really good thing to point out, is that we're actually looking outside of the United States for guidance on a lot of these things. A lot of these, he's looking to Europe to find out what they don't allow in their food. I mean, so I don't understand the argument here. WHO is trying to take more power, trying to do more things, yet all of the regulations and all of the trends that the MAHA movement is trying to put in place are based on things they see in Canada or in the EU, because the United States doesn't do shit. Excuse me, there I go again, swearing. But I really think this is quite extraordinary. And you have to be able to see how he's talking out of almost two sides of his head. The WHO is bad. The WHO didn't enforce anything. The food in America is bad, but the people outside of the United States and the WHO know really well. It's bizarre.
China withheld critical information about the outbreak for at least a month and faced no real consequences or criticism from WHO. As the 2024 Congressional Oversight Report put it, the WHO was misinformed, denied access to China, and used as a cover for the Chinese Communist Party's reckless action. These and other atrocities make one thing clear: we must strengthen.
Wow, I mean, atrocities, right? Atrocities. Hello. That seems pretty. What do you want? What do you want? Who is it? Is it the delivery guy already? No, it's just the mailman came early, remember? We were watching the mailman came really early. It was actually a mail lady, remember? I don't know what you're looking at. There's no deliveries coming today, no nothing. So there's no reason for the alarm. And I don't know what the grumbling was all about, monkey boys. Okie dokie, bing, bing, bing.
National and local autonomy to hold global organizations in check and to restore a real balance of power. Underneath all the bureaucratic language, what's at stake here is a vision for our future. Are we going to be subjects to a technocratic control system that uses health risks and pandemic preparedness as a Trojan horse to curtail basic democratic freedoms? Do we want a future where every person, every movement, every transaction, and every human body is under surveillance at all times? Now,
see, for me, this sounds like he's just making an announcement. He's actually telling you what to expect. He's telling you what they're implementing. And if this administration doesn't do it, of course, the next one can. I don't even really understand what this is other than making a lot out of nothing. If it's just a switch we can turn on and off depending on what administration's in the White House. And in reality, this is just a joke. It's a show. It's an elaborate theater. When the real issue is the PrEP Act being unconstitutional, and that, one correct lawsuit in the right place that feeds into the right circuit court, you could potentially get this done. But you could also just make this argument in the right places in front of the right people and start, really making a case for the fact that maybe the law should just be changed. Even if you just added a set of criteria that had to be hit, like the WHO declares an emergency, at least there would be something there. And the president signs off, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, something would make it stronger than what it is right now, which is just a rational basis test, and this unelected official can do it. And it can go on in perpetuity like it is right now. And so the limited spectrum of debate being established by this MAHA movement is that the PrEP Act emergency needs to go, and that we need to change over the COVID shots to the regular vaccine schedule so that they can get compensation.
I don't want to be too alarmist. The new regulations aren't in themselves medical totalitarianism. In fact, they were perhaps written with good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
But they are definitely a step in the wrong direction. That's why we're rejecting the amendments, not only on behalf of our own citizens, but the whole world. After all, America could simply ignore the WHO. But few other countries are as powerful as the United States. Even though many of these amendments are phrased to be non-binding, As a practical matter, it's hard for many countries to resist them, especially when they are dependent on the WHO funding and its partnerships.
So instead of wielding money so that we can have some influence over all these tiny countries that have no choice to follow the WHO, I guess we're just going to abandon the WHO, abandon funding the WHO, and let China control all those countries. Or maybe India's funding the WHO. I don't know really what's going on here, but something doesn't really make sense.
That's why we're taking leadership to stop an agreement that's bad for the entire world. I want to be clear that in rejecting these amendments, President Trump and I are not rejecting international cooperation. We can cooperate with other nations without jeopardizing our civil liberties, without undermining our Constitution, and without ceding away America's treasured sovereignty. That's my commitment to you. That's President Trump's commitment to you. Thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless our country.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And so that's kind of an exercise in trying to stay focused. I don't know if it worked very well, but it's definitely a script. It's a terribly bad script. It's shocking to me.
That's not what he's thinking about.
He's just trying to feel the vibe of the crowd and just flow and just let it all come out.
He's just going to do that Bob thing. What will happen is what will happen. Oh. Oh, no.
What? What are you doing, Bob?
Into the switch mode.
Oh, my
switch
God.
to Flip into the... Oh, my God. No. He did not just do that. That was the dark side to Fakey.
Fakey 5.
Sloppy twist. This man has got so much skill on the skateboard. Switch punch it all. It's unspeakable. And the best thing is that switch rock and roll. Oh my gosh! Oh, the rewind revert.
He's just flowing.
Blunt Fakey. Oh no! That's the trick. That's the trick. That was the trick. The half cab front side blunt.
This is Bob.
He's still going.
This is Bob.
What? Stop it!
I can't even talk.
We have lost our minds in the booth right now. It could not happen any better.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Actually, it's 3:24, late to the show today. It is not a matter of what's true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true. That is so often the case. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the protocols were manslaughter, gain of function is a mythology, and the Scooby-Doo mystery, that's real. We were tricked into solving that lab leak mystery, and a spectacular commitment to those lies is all that's required on social media in order to sustain this forever. What are you chewing on? Okay, that's fine. And I gotta say, supplemental oxygen causes acute respiratory distress syndrome. You might not be aware of that. Virology at this stage is really just using synthetic DNA and RNA to transfect things. And placebo batches were a great way, probably, to make sure that transfection, when it was rolled out, was never really, it didn't really hurt that many people. And if it did, the side effects could be characterized as rare. Intramuscular injection is actually just dumb. I've been saying it for a while, but we've added a little bit to it. We've added from the early or late 1800s. I do really think that it's still really important to think about what social media really is. Social media is magic because we are to believe that the algorithm does something when in reality it's just programming. It's not random. And the weaponized piles of money employ people really cheaply to work from home and to argue about stuff on social media, argue about what questions are important to ask. And this type of theater on social media can be used to create any illusion that they want to, especially with the assistance of just a little bit of podcasting where 2 or 3 people get together and say they agree. And just a little bit of an organization like this, for example. These organizations are all places where an illusion of consensus can be sustained as long as a certain number of them are sticking to a limited spectrum of debate. That's it, a provided script. And I would argue that I think there's very good evidence that the members of ICANN, the top levels of Children's Health Defense, especially Meryl Nass and Mary Holland, these are scripted people. And the spin-off organizations that model on them or have tried to do new things, start new organizational groups where they donate money and get stuff done, they're all kind of the same illusion, all staffed by people who have been reading from the same script, and that's how we got here. That's exactly how we got here. Mary Holland's spectacular commitment to that script, Robert Malone's spectacular commitment, Jayanta Bhattacharya's, Brian Hooker's, Kevin McKernan's spectacular commitment to these lies, Nick Hudson's trust in the script is all that's required. Jessica Rose happily, giggly going along with it, and Mike Eden, one of the latest guys to unequivocally reveal himself as somebody who is scripted. Please don't eat it, Mike, because we'll be right back where we were before, right? Don't eat it. Just rip it up. That's what we're really doing. And you got to stay focused, because at the beginning of this pandemic for almost a year, I wasn't able to stay focused. And it was because these coordinated liars followed me around. I really think placebo intramuscular injections could be a thing if you're using saline, because really, if it's sterile saline, if you don't pick up any bacteria on the way through the skin, I do think it's possible. There are, entirely inert substances that you, in theory, could inject that wouldn't cause as much damage as others. I think saline is one of those few things that might qualify for that. If you don't understand why the cheese is free on social media, you are not going to escape. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gigaohm Biological. You can call in and leave a voicemail. Nobody ever does, but you could. I might even pick it up, but I probably won't. We have a couple websites. Stream.gigaohm.bio has its own app for PeerTube that you can download, and it works really, really well. I'm really excited about that. I can't encourage you enough. If you're going to watch the replay, don't watch it on Twitch. Don't watch it on the PeerTube website. Don't watch it on Rumble. Don't watch it anywhere except for on the PeerTube app on your phone or on your iPad, or maybe it even works on a PC desktop now. I guess I assume it would. And also, please stay tuned in to HoustonTonicITS.com. He gives shout outs to me a little more vigorously than I have ever given a shout out to him, but he deserves everything that I should give him. His website is spectacular. This Substack also spectacular. I can't stress enough how the crimes in Scotland are such a wonderful way to bring people in America to understanding what was likely also done in America. Also, I really like Ned's Substack. Ned is one of the people who is encouraging me not to use so many swear words, not to be so aggressive, and I get it. I totally get it. And as I said in the beginning of the program, I apologize for that. I'm just sometimes vulnerable like everybody else is. It's a very emotional thing when they do it to you and your family, and they're texting your wife. This shit is real for me. And it has been real for a very long time. If you want if you want like a little, it's a Velcro. If you want a Velcro tactical patch, like this thing above my head here, or if you want a clear sticker for your car or for your water bottle like this, then you can send a self-addressed stamped envelope to P.O. Box 802, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania 15102, the same school district as the guy who shot Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania last year. Just so you know, you'll probably be put on a list for sending a letter to me, but that's okay. Welcome to the show. This is the place where we stay focused on the biology. We don't take the bait on social media, and we love our neighbor. This is an illustration of what it looks like to stay focused. You can see the focus in his eyes there. I really like this, see the focus, because it is how we got this far, was staying focused on the biology. Man, I wanted to buy a ticket to Japan 4 years ago already, and not to do experiments. Watch this focus. By staying focused on the biology, actually, that's how Mark Husatonic was able to build a whole webpage just about intramuscular injection and the history of it. See that focus? And I really think that focus is going to get us across the finish line. Focus is going to get us the fish. So if you've been here for a while, you might be at the top of the wave. And if not, you might be one of these skilled TV watchers, skilled social media users that doesn't know how to stay focused or doesn't know how not to take the bait, because that's what they do on social media. And has no idea who their neighbors are because they have their head in their phone. Hopefully you're not one of them, though. I'm going to have to switch over. We have the Star Trek set over here. Hold on 1 second. Let me... Oh, man, did I blow it? Oh, no. That worked. That's okay. Oh, I was blanked out. That's right. So, I want to make sure we understand something very clearly. There's nobody on the internet right now besides Gigaohm Biological who will tell you that autism spectrum disorder is a myth and tell you why and what purpose this myth serves. Now, 2013, Brian Hooker might have told you that. But 2025, Brian Hooker will not tell you that autism spectrum disorder is a really terrible myth used to make sure that intramuscular injection is never questioned as a methodology, that virology is never questioned as a science, and that public health is never questioned as a reason. And in fact, the pandemic and gain of function as myths were used to reinforce the illusion of autism. And the vaccine schedule and this argument about is it MMR or DTP or all of them or whatever, or a combination of them, or the fact that you gave them while the kid was sick. This whole debate wraps right up like one big nasty burrito. And we've got to escape by telling the truth, which is intramuscular injection as a medicine is a dumb idea from the late 1800s. There's actually a lot of evidence that during the development of the polio vaccine, there was a lot of debate about the mechanism that was at play and whether or not it was even biologically plausible to protect someone from poliovirus infection and the effects of poliomyelitis by intramuscular injection when the whole route of infection was via the gut, according to their biology. So what we have here is the careful orchestration of biological myths through publications, through opinion pieces, through book writing, and through a long-standing assumption that there must be a combination of substances that would not only be safe to inject intramuscularly, but would actually be good for you, would actually be a way of administering medicine. And this all goes back to the use of morphine and heroin. Pure substances that when injected have pretty predictable results. Can still cause all kinds of tissue damage if the injection is too large, if the barrel of the needle's too big, if there was air in the needle, if the needle was dirty, etc., etc., etc. But that use at that time in the late 1800s let them believe that intramuscular injection as medicine is not a dumb idea. It works. Maybe this is a way to replace this terrible thing that we're doing now with little rolling razor blades and scraping forks and whatnot, to variolate, to vaccinate. Variolation was the name of the game, inoculating someone via the skin. This is where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. That's the whole reason why Suzanne Humphries has a book that doesn't cover it. That's the whole reason why Tom Cowan has a book that doesn't cover it. That's the whole reason why Peter McCullough has just released a book called The Mythologies of Vaccines and doesn't cover it. Because it's too simple. The truth is too real the truth would be too damaging. If this is actually the truth, ladies and gentlemen, we are in very big trouble unless we start scoring touchdowns with it. And so I really think that you have to try as hard as you can to see that that is why there is a scripted fake health freedom movement that is influencing America and potentially the world through this illusion that is created on social media. But most of it is in America. The illusion of an international health freedom movement is an illusion that has been mostly deployed on Americans and Americans that use social media. That's why the health freedom movement has had so many international events that have recruited, selected people from these international locations or invited people to that third international location, scripted them, checked them out, got to meet in person, and then maybe some of them got to speak in front of the Senate in the years to come. And that international flavor actually basically took away the sovereignty of a lot of Americans that should have been allowed to speak in front of Senator Ron Johnson instead of people from as far away as Iceland and also Romania, to create an illusion of consensus that something international occurred. Instead of the wholesale usurping of the American government since the first Trump administration through the last Biden administration and into this one now. And so I am making the statement unequivocally that Tony Bark and Brandy Vaughn were replaced with Judy Mikovits, Paul Thomas, Brian Hooker, Mary Holland, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., among many others. There were some unwitting participants like Laura Bono. You know, she's not a bad lady. She had no bad intentions, but I assure you that Mary controlled her, held her in a corner, and when they were in private, I bet you dollars to donuts Mary was even mean. And it really all goes back for me to 2013, the recording of Brian Hooker on the radio, where he says that he doesn't like the word autism. He doesn't use the word autism. His son was vaccine damaged. He was neurologically injured. He doesn't like the word autism. And Brian Hooker in 2025 is sure that autism is on the rise in America because of the vaccine schedule or some combination of vaccines or vaccinating kids when they have an ear infection like they did to his. I guess it could also go back to 2015 when Mary Holland and Paul Offit first performed together on Democracy Now! As one side was a pro-MMR and one side was, you know, the MMR hurt my son or some untested component of it did, like Wakefield and Polly said. I guess it could have been 2016 too. I didn't darken 2016 when ICANN was founded and the Max movie came out. But it was somewhere between 2015 and 16 that Tony Bark and Brandy Vaughn started to become leaders and in need of replacement. Ultimately in 2017 and 18 was when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was recruited into this group, when Judy Mikovits was brought out and started to roll with these people and be on stage with them. And then in 2020, they were both killed, murdered, died, something, I guess. And now we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS secretary. Not quite the epilogue of this 2008 book from Skyhorse Publishing, where he runs as an independent, then gets taken as vice president, and then the president gets shot, and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. becomes president. Not quite like that, but a lot of those motifs are in this current narrative, you know, of course, just by accident. They wouldn't have used social media to curate a narrative like that, to create the illusion of consensus with a bunch of people on a dumb script. They would never have done that. That would be crazy. If they have billions and billions of dollars and they wanted social media to become globally relevant as a political and socioeconomic force, relevant to all the countries around the world, just like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the WHO is relevant to, what would they do? They would script and fund a bunch of political people and a bunch of podcasters, and they would rule by podcasting with those people. And that's what you see. There's no algorithms, just simple programming, simple censorship. And then the illusion that these people were censored got everybody to pay attention to them. And then these people arguing with each other, like Robert Malone suing the Bregans, or Robert Malone suing Jane Ruby, or George Webb suing Robert Malone, while they all share each other's links and give each other, their viewers, links to each other. It's all one dumb script, one malevolent show. One of the key aspects was putting Marty McCary, Jay Bhattacharya, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the places that they are, having the script of Robert Malone and Kevin McKernan. That's how we got here. I think some of these years are important, but the whole timeline is just crucial to understand, going all the way back to the Manhattan Project and understanding the evolution of these bad ideas is how we got here, where evolution because DNA is the central theme of all biology classes and of all science communicators on Earth. It's not by accident. They maintain this illusion of consensus by sticking to a provided script. Not just these groups, but all these podcasters, all of these politicians that are funded by this larger weaponized piles of money that are Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the other billionaires that are, vying for control of the social media landscape. Because that's the idea. That's how national sovereignty becomes kind of irrelevant if social media ultimately governs the political landscape of all these countries. And so they're already trying to impose that idea onto these politicians and raising politicians up in an atmosphere where they accept this assumption that, well, social media is where my career is going to live or die. I've got to get the right people working and helping with me on Twitter. And they all trust the script that they've been given because it's part of the contract. They didn't know that talking about the spike protein was going to end up screwing everybody over. They thought they were given a leg up, a secret hint that would make them and their little career, their little podcast, their little IPAC, nonprofit, their little new nutraceutical foundation would become better funded if they had this little script that would get them started about this toxic spike protein with the inserts and the furin cleavages and stuff. Somebody else over there was scripted with the narrative that, well, we have previous immunity to other viruses that overlap with this one, so it's not very fair for them to say that it's novel. I'm looking at you, Mike Yeadon. So yeah, we're at a stage now where the illusion of consensus is only sustained because none of these people have broken yet. But I don't think very many of these people had any idea that they would come this close to being exposed and would have to work for this long in the roles that they are still in. I don't think any of them knew that it would be a 10-year or 15-year or longer commitment. Mike Yeadon really wants to get out. That's why he's really vigorously promoting Sasha Latypova and Catherine Watts as the key thinkers of the pandemic. It's just a joke. Sasha Latypova was on stage with Robert Malone in January of 2023 in Stockholm, Sweden, telling everybody that you'd never figure it out because fifth generation warfare is impenetrable and it's the DOD, I guess. It's all global governments, according to Mary Holland, who said that, Sasha Latypova said whatever, that it's all the governments, all the militaries around the world. So you better give up. There's no solution except for ending the PrEP Act emergency because she released some papers from the FDA that says that no trials mattered at all or something. Sasha Latypova is a scripted fool, just like her daughter was a scripted fool before the pandemic. A fool that read a script under promises of fame and fortune. Most of these people are guilty like that. And so, yes, this this Lioness of Judah ministry is probably just run by this scripted bunch of clowns. And now the idea that Mike Eden is on that Substack, or other Substacks are promoting this Substack where he says that it's Sasha Latypova and Catherine Watt. This is just a provided script. It's kind of sad, but it's something that I've known for a while. There's no other way that I could make this slide.
I'm afraid that the latest data tells us that we're dealing with essentially a worst case scenario.
It's like a marble statue.
And so this guy is a guy that has hours and hours of a track record of spending almost, half of his time or more on me for almost 4 years. A lot of that time was actually spent in conjunction with Charles Rixey, that was lied about as an expert for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book. And I guess they're just trying to see if they can insert somebody else, and kind of ignore me. But it's in the book. And not one journalist from the left has even bothered to call and say, hey, a lot of these people listed as experts, we kind of know are clowns. Like, we can see that Jan Jekielek and Brett Weinstein and Meryl Nass. And I mean, these people we don't really take very seriously. But you were at the University of Pittsburgh at the start of the pandemic, according to the index. We're interested to see, what you're doing now with regard to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. How come, do you still work for him? Nobody in Pittsburgh has asked. But what would happen if I sent that book with annotations to the Pittsburgh Gazette? Guess we'll find out. So the funny part is here, right? This is all very strange, but it gets much worse as we let this thing run.
Problem with experts, even when they're, the good guys.
She's literally trying to raise a smile there, but...
So he's faking, making fun of her. Remember that he said lots of violent things about me. He said that I should die, that I was a traitor, that, whatever, to all of America, that I'm fake, that I work for the Mossad. I mean, he said that basically I was lying about Charles Rixey. But the funny part is that there are names in that book of people who know exactly the story, that Charles Rixey was fired. And it was because of that guy being in the room during a discussion. Now, what's interesting is to think about the possibility that what that firing actually did was make me feel like the writing team took me seriously enough to fire Rixey and keep me on because they trusted me. And then it was after that him and Charles Rixey went on to stream and scream about me with Matt Crawford and other people for another year and a half. It's very, very extraordinary. It's almost like it was one big show the whole time. Now, what's really interesting is, remember, Sasha Latypova on stage with Robert Malone in January of 2023 in Stockholm, Sweden. This guy's not covering that. He's covering her most recent interview where she's saying that Peter McCullough and Ryan Cole are good guys. Peter McCullough and Ryan Cole were both on stage with Lee Min-Yan in the beginning of the pandemic in 2021 with none other than Robert Malone in church after church after church. Someone who's often in my chat for the first 3 years, who traveled across the United States by car with Kevin McCairn and even went to Tokyo to visit Kevin McCairn while Rixey was there, someone named Karmadoc, who I met in the middle of Pennsylvania at some George Webb meeting. She was in one of those meetings in one of those churches and asked a question about self-amplifying RNA a little too early in 2021, because they are a traveling show, all on the same script. The script was fine-tuned and honed as it absorbed different people and assigned different people different talking points. And Robert Malone and Kevin McKernan sit at the heart of that script coordination. These guys are just clowns that got pieces of the script. George Breweb, Paul Cottrell, Kevin McCairn. Once they absorbed Peter McCullough and Ryan Cole and Pierre Corey, they all had their own parts of the script too.
Peter McCullough and Ryan Cole, I think of them as good guys. They've been always outspoken about this. The problem with
none of that
experts,
is
once
over.
they
and
have
as
the area
Sasha
of
Latifa
expertise,
pointed
they are-
out,
And so then in 2025, on stage together were Mary Holland and Sasha Latipova. And Mary Holland is saying that Sasha is right, that it's a global military operation. And Mike Eden is promoting Sasha Latipova, but it gets worse, right? Because not only that, but the Bregans are promoting Sasha Latipova July 18th. And Jane Ruby is promoting Sasha Latipova July 19th. And those are both the people that got sued by Robert Malone earlier in the pandemic. And Robert Malone promoted them and their book. And they got mad because Robert Malone used the term mass psychosis. And these guys said there's no such thing because they're psychiatrists and they know, or something like that. $25 million they supposedly got sued for. And we're supposed to believe this is all spontaneous and that Sasha is just bubbling up as a thinker that bothers people and bothers Robert Malone, but gets promoted by all these people because she finally figured it out.
Sasha Latifa pointed
Look
out,
at this.
None of that is over. And as Sasha Latifa
This is the
pointed out
end.
this morning, none of that.
This is Robert Malone essentially belongs in jail. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. should essentially be dropped from his post, that Jay Bhattacharya should be dropped from his post, that Marty McCary should be dropped as fast as possible, that Vinay Prasad dropped as fast as possible. This is an emergency because we were misled by an international scripted group of shitheads. Excuse my language, but we need to talk like adults because this is a very adult problem. It involves lying adults. You see, that's the issue. If there are people that are scripted for years and years to lie about me and about our work, then this is worth swearing about. So let's just take this example of these frauds on a script, and it's Robert Malone's dumb script. This Norman Piazanskyk is a virologist who worked for the CDC for some years on disease diagnosis using genetic sequences, you know, the whole bullshit thing. And in October of 2024, I called him out about it because he was trying to defend Hillary Koprowski, who I'm very interested now because the things that Mark has been talking about have led me to believe that maybe Hillary wasn't a bad guy. Maybe they just overruled him on this intramuscular injection thing. Maybe he was speaking out, and that's the reason why they blamed the AIDS pandemic on him, so that you would never find out that he was an outspoken critic of intramuscular injection for polio back when polio was being made. You know, you'd never find your way back to the yellow fever vaccine and the use of the monkeys and Alice Moore. So this guy seems to be on a script, and I knew he was for a long time. And this is in October of 24. You know, just watch some of the episodes on his podcast. This nut seduced many people. Have you ever seen posts by a musician collecting money for his research on Wuhan virus? He is Walter Chestnut. He has over 80,000 followers, while Jonathan Couey has about 15,000. Idiots rule. Now, Walter Chestnut is also a scripted fool, but Norman has spent a lot of time telling people to listen to Walter. That's probably part of the reason why Walter has 80,000 followers and I still have not even close to 15,000. It's because these people are on a script. You know, I got somebody to give $5,000 to Walter Chestnut as part of the money that they got from their dead wife, because at the time I thought Walter Chestnut was a good guy. The person asked me, who should I donate this money to? And I did not say Mark. I said Walter Chestnut, because at the time I had been streaming with him and he seemed like he was really a good guy, really telling the truth about the spike protein. $5,000. I'm sorry, Riley. I didn't know. I was an idiot. And if I could take it back, I would claw every of it back with a spoon. And so interestingly enough, this guy has been performing now lately. This is his tweet from the end of 2024, claiming that after a lot of arguing with Kevin McKernan, the hoaxer and dopehead blocked him. And so this is how it works on X. They create these illusions of rivalry and argument, and they insult each other, but also promote and include a link to everybody's Substack. Oh, this Substack is crazy. No, this Substack in response is really crazy. Here's a link to his website. Look how Looney Tunes he is. And so if you search with Norman Pye, this CDC clown, I don't know where he's from, as if he's from Poland or whatever, and you search for his handle and my handle on X, you'll find so much Kevin McKernan you can't even believe it. Of course, I can't see it because he's blocked. Here's Kevin McKernan saying that Nick from Panda has already pissed over all virologists. Here's him talking about his single photo of him in the original Human Genome Project. That's his one calling card and one business card that he drops all the time. And nobody likes it when I drop the business card of the Wuhan cover-up book and the acknowledgments page. Here's Sasha Latipova talking about, well, what does she say in June of 2024? Yes, they fake some sort of consistent signal out of background biological chemical noise and then use massive propaganda via controlled media plus a ton of money for compliance with bullshit. That's how you make a pandemic. It's curiously close to what we've been saying, isn't it? But just there, just on that shitty platform, and never really acknowledging that she's just stealing ideas and what she can on X. And I don't see any of that because I've had her muted for years. Here he goes. Kevin McKernan. What's the matter, Norm? Showing you how to use X with GIFs. Here's some JJCouey stuff saying and protecting Kevin. Oh, don't defame Kevin. He's such a good guy, and I'm an anonymous mouse from Australia. I should know. Eric Muller's another clown. Let's see. Here's my friend Annabelle, the unofficial account alt. She's awesome. You can find a lot of answers from her there. Mikey, chill out, buddy. Here's more JJCouey. Look at this one. Thank you for confirming your involvement in the biopreparat, the Soviet biological weapons programming, and bringing it to the CDC. Holy shit. And here's Nick Hudson promoting it. Like, he's responding to these tweets because that's how social media works. They create fake conversations, fake rivalries, fake debates, and then you can get absorbed into it, trying to wave them down and say, hey, but hey, wait a minute, but. And they just keep right on going. And every time the tour bus circles the block, you think you can yell in the window, and Brett Weinstein and all those guys lean their head out and they say, hey, dude, what's up? How you doing? And you yell, yeah, it was all the opioid crisis, you asshole. And they don't listen because they're just driving on to the next show. It was all supplementary oxygen. They don't care because they're maintaining the illusion that got them this far, and they must now. They are trapped there now. They can't do anything else. What are they going to admit? That intramuscular injection's a dumb idea from the 1800s, and we knew that already back when Brian Hooker was saying that he doesn't like the word autism, and that's the reason why we stopped him from saying it anymore. They can't say any of this stuff. That's why we have a ghost of health freedom haunting us. That's why that ghost is on a dumb script. America's in trouble, ladies and gentlemen. If the left wanted to win, if anybody on the left wanted to win and destroy the Trump administration, this whole show that got all this health freedom behind Donald Trump would be the way to do it. You could destroy them by understanding that an enlisted expert in the Health and Human Services Secretary's book about Wuhan is willing to go on national television and say that this guy is a scripted fraud who has probably been fooled by a bunch of other scripted frauds.
But you can tell if someone's lying. You can sort of feel it in people. And I have lied. I'm sure I'll lie again. I don't want to lie. I don't think I'm a liar. I try not to be a liar. I don't want to be a liar. I think it's really important not to be a liar.
Let's turn this thing around, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can do it. I think we have a lot of solid ground to stand on. And they're all on the same script. It's become so obvious now that the bench is emptied and they're all starting to coordinate together. The Globetrotters and the Generals are all visible. We know that it's a bullshit basketball game now. The question is how are we going to be able to pull our heads out? How are we going to show this to our kids so that they don't buy into this anymore? And more importantly, that they understand the incredible danger that social media represents because of the fact that they can pay people to go on social media with a script and coordinate, and not just to sell stuff or get people to click, but to get people to change their mind about who they are and what they want to leave for their kids, what they want to, what trees they want to plant, under whose shade they will not shelter. Keep you focused on today in the last 5 hours instead of having a multi-generational outlook on things and what we might be able to build with that level of foresight and planning. These people are thinking exactly that. And once you see it for what it is, this multi-generational plan that people get allowed to be part of, and then that makes them feel like they're part of the club. It's not blackmail, it's not money, it's not drugs that are getting all of this to work and people to stick to the script. It's a promise of membership. The illusion of membership is how they get people to unwittingly participate.
Hi, Rev. How you doing?
Good. You?
Good. It's things have been a little bit hectic. Last week we were at the crypto conference. Next week we're at Freedom Fest in Palm Springs. It seems like we've been kind of moving and traveling nonstop. Earlier last month we were in Manchester for working out a deal with a new video streaming service.
Now, what's interesting about this video, I thought I put in, I guess I planned to put it in earlier. Now, I'm sure this is the mailman. The guy that he's speaking to, Rav Avora, is a Canadian. Rav Avora started a Substack. Yes, I know, a Substack. I mean, everybody's got a Substack. And he started what I find very curious about knowing that Jay Bhattacharya is for sure a scripted fraud who is most importantly scripted by Robert Malone. He admitted it himself that in California at a barbecue and at my hotel in the morning when he asked me to stop saying Robert Malone's name because he himself might be the head of NIH in a few months. And so this is a script. These people have met me in person, and some of them have even admitted that it's this guy that scripts them. Now, I think it's pretty easy to see that Meryl Nass and Mary Holland have been scripted by Robert Malone for quite some time. It's pretty easy to see that maybe that's how they controlled a guy like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and why he's so fumbling it now, because he never wanted to be here. He never wanted to be at the head of this kind of a fake health freedom movement. He wanted to be the head of probably something more like a real environmental movement. But when you're scripted to be part of the governing narrative, you're scripted to be part of the governing elite, then you follow the script. You trust in the script, knowing that you don't know what's behind all the curtains anyway. You're not allowed to know. It's part of the reason why the script works so well. You're never going to make a mistake if you just have to tell the truth, except for that one little part of the script. So Robert Malone being so present specifically behind and in this sort of Steve Bannon air where most people in America don't see this part of the internet. Most people in America don't make enough of the right consecutive clicks to find themselves a long time ago in the presence of Robert Malone. But if you were sufficiently interested in what was going on in the pandemic, the biology of it, you would have eventually found your way to know Mike Yeadon and Peter McCullough and Pierre Corey and Robert Malone and a lot of these other people. And that's by design. They were put in place on social media with specific parts of the script in order that they might mesh like a gear and you'd get ground by them. And as I was trying to say, Rob Avora is a guy who was recruited, I believe, in 2023, although for this podcast, I didn't bother to do that due diligence. I thought instead I would assign that as homework. But Rob Avora and his podcast / Substack with Jay Bhattacharya called Illusions of Consensus, or Illusion of Consensus. I mean, think about how crazy that is and how long I've been saying it and how many times I've met Jay Bhattacharya in person over the pandemic. For him to start a Substack with a Canadian called Illusion of Consensus. And now in 2025, this Canadian is still making a podcast interviewing Robert Malone, the guy that Jay Bhattacharya, head of NIH, told me not to talk about before he was appointed NIH director, because he would be appointed NIH director. I don't know if I would have done him a favor, like he would have gotten appointed higher, or, I was endangering his appointment. I think it was much more the hint that he was making was maybe he could help me out with a job once he got NIH director if I could just shut my mouth about Robert Malone. And now Robert Malone's on the ACIP, and Robert Malone can go on the Epoch Times, American Thought Leaders for like the 8th time in the last 5 years, and talk about his role on the ACIP and how everybody's working against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and he's playing 3D chess because he can't act unilaterally as the HHS secretary, except with regard to the PrEP Act, which allows the HHS secretary to act unilaterally at any point in time on the rational basis test alone.
Stop lying!
So it's really interesting that one of the homework assignments I'd like to give you in the chat, if you want to try, is find out when Rob Avora was first announced to the world by Brett Weinstein on the Dark Horse podcast, because that actually happened. Brett Weinstein, the guy who was in a Signal chat with me for a year after Piper Stover handed me off to him after she finally let me publish the review which said transfection was bad, and we gosh, that's a long time ago. And so these two guys are doing a podcast, and this is the start of it, and the amount of bullshit will probably be, quite frankly, unbelievable. One of the things that they're going to talk about in depth at the beginning of this podcast is about signing up with a new streaming service in the UK. Now, I want you to, and selling videos and selling memberships. Now, I want you to contrast that to the idea that I got to go to the door. Hold on 1 second, guys. It's okay, buddy. Sorry, I thought I had to go to the door, but I did not have to go to the door. I don't know what that guy was doing, but somebody was standing at the door, and Mikey and Ruby are in here, so they didn't even notice, but he walked away now. Did he go up the hill, or what did he do? Interesting. Anyway, that was a little interruption. So the point of this is to let you know that our streaming service, our PeerTube it's an open source software, okay? So the idea of an open source software called PeerTube is that you can have the thing, there it is right there. I bet you that's me live right now. Let's see if it works. Is that really going to work? Oh my God. Look. Our streaming service, our PeerTube it's an open source software. So that's pretty kick-ass. So I'm not asking for a login. This app doesn't ask for a login. I don't collect logins. You can watch my videos for free on an app. It's a very tiny app. It's open source. You just have to add my website and away you go. So the way it works is you download PeerTube with the little squid and you open it. And if you didn't have it already added here, what you would do is you'd click on that and you would get the platforms to come up. And it says search PeerTube content. Don't type it there. Scroll down here and say show more platforms. And then it says now, instead it says search PeerTube platforms. And then you should put in a combination of letters that it can't find anything, like G, G, H, J. And there, now you get add a platform. This button doesn't show up until you put something in this gap, in this blank, that it can't find. Then you can add a platform with the URL, and what you put in there is stream.gigaohm.bio, which is right there at the top scroll. So if you put that right here, then you'll be connected to me and it'll be on your phone. It plays much better than the website. You can even watch the live, which is pretty kick-ass. And Robert Malone is not proposing that. Robert Malone is proposing joining another streaming service in the UK where he can sell his videos to his subscribers and monetize and monetize and monetize. I don't want to monetize the truth. I want you to believe that the truth is so important to get out there that you support me willingly while I give it away for free on PeerTube. And when I start to publish, PDFs to go along with the basic biology and PDFs to go along with the basic virology, or lack thereof virology biology, that you see me giving it away for free on PeerTube and on my website and feel like supporting me. What are you chewing on now, Yo-Yo? That's probably a piece of paper I like. He likes to shred paper. If that's one that I needed, you're going to be in big trouble. That better not be my motorcycle. Oh no, that's a letter. That's a letter from a reader. Oh no. Okay, I can't do anything about that right now. Okay, here we go.
Platform that's being created that's more UK centric, and it's just earlier today I was taking a lesson on the stallion with a Portuguese.
Now remember, he takes a lesson on the stallion with a Portuguese trainer. I'm sure that's cheap. He breeds horses. Last year he had like 11 foals. Horses are cheap. And he traveled the world in 2020 and 2021. He was going to Rome with Steve Hatfill. He's had 6 international COVID summits that have ranged as far as from Japan to Finland, Romania, Belgium, the whole 9 yards. And this guy's just a wonderkin of activity. The guy breeds emus, he builds barns, he's fixing tractors, he's planting gardens, he's homesteading, he's breeding horses, training them, and also learning to ride. And he does between 9 and 12 podcasts a week. And he does between like 9 and 11 Substacks a week. Plus he retweets some and restacks some people. Plus, he's, going to do some videos for some private streaming services. Plus, he's on the ACIP and works, at the FDA a lot. And it's remarkable. It's almost like he's fake.
Coach. And then it was running around doing farm chores. And
did he call himself a coach? Did he actually just call himself a coach? Holy shit. Can I go back? It's going to be really hard for me to go back on this. I'm sorry, but I think he just called himself a coach. Oh, wow. Somebody else recently started calling themselves coach.
Trimming trees and all that kind of stuff. And now managed to get a little bit of dinner and I'm ready for your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy suppose it's a contrast of sorts. I mean, no one else really does this on your Substack where you were talking about.
So here we go. We're going to agree, first of all, that all the greatest journalism, all the real independent news media, Malone News, is on Substack. Not that dissimilar to what we see with Jane Ruby promoting Sasha Latopova's Substack, with the Bregans running their grift on Substack, promoting Sasha Latopova on Substack. All of these people are on Substack. I'm not. I've been told for 5 years I should be, but I'm not. Jessica Hockett and Jonathan Engler and Martin Neal all do their shtick primarily on Substack. They even write their books chapter by chapter on Substack. Robert Malone's going to explain the process of writing a book chapter by chapter on Substack. Shit, Matt Crawford wanted to teach me how to write a book or something like that when he was trying to help me out. These people are so terrible. And what's hilarious is that this guy, when he's being left to his own improv and reading a script, it is just sad. Like, listen to them grind through this. It's really not good acting.
Real substantive political issues. And then you also have these wonderful, refreshing interludes about your farming life. It's always fun to see that.
I think it that and the Friday Funnies and the Sunday Strip give our readers a break. The other stuff can get a little heavy. And I've been putting out some pretty heavy duty things. And I think tomorrow I'm going to be talking about these various drugs like ketamine that have become so popular with the Silicon Valley and Bitcoin and media world. And of course, that's hot on topics right now because of Elon Musk and the things that the press has been saying about that.
Yeah.
I got a book about ketamine at the Broken Science meeting, the second one or the third one, because the author of a book about ketamine was there. And I know it's over there on the bookshelf, but it might be around the corner on the bookshelf, and I don't want to unplug. I'll try and have it in my immediate reach for the next show that I reference it. But that's definitely, it's not by coincidence. This is a script, and the hamster wheel rungs come back. And so it's not by accident that I met that author, a book about ketamine, and they're talking about ketamine, and Elon Musk is talking about ketamine, because the relevant questions are on the wheel, and they're going to come back again and again. And they change a little bit because they're covered in a little bit different shit every time they come back around.
Yeah. I've written a lot about the psychotherapeutic application of psychedelic drugs, particularly MDMA and psilocybin. Ketamine has also become very popular over the past few years, even though it's technically not a psychedelic. But I don't know too much about it. But this individual, Jonathan Edwards, friend of Jay's, I met him at the Rescue the Republic event, and he has a book on ketamine.
Oh my gosh, a friend of Jay's. Well, then he met him at Broken Science. Now I got to really look for the frickin' book because it's driving me crazy now. And my cord is around my leg. And where's the book? Come on, I'm going to find it right now. There's a ketamine book here somewhere. And I don't want to sell the book. I just want you to realize that I'm trapped in this crazy place where random references come back to haunt me. Where is this thing? I wish I knew what it was called because I don't exactly remember what it was called either. Where did I put it? Oh man, darn it, I don't want to waste any more time. Where is this book? It wouldn't be on that top shelf. It shouldn't be in the middle either because that's not, it should be on the bottom next to, oh there it is. I think this is it. He said Jonathan Edwards, right? I think he said Jonathan Edwards. This is the book he's talking about. So I met Jonathan Edwards at a Broken Science meeting, and for sure, because he was at every one, Jay Bhattacharya was at this Broken Science meeting when I met this guy. And if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about the fact that Jay was at every... I don't know why I'm so out of breath. I think I'm not sitting up straight, and so I'm bent over. So I think it's really interesting what he's saying, because where did he meet him? He met him at the Rescue the Republic event. Now, I don't remember Jay Bhattacharya being at the Rescue the Republic event, but maybe this guy was. And if you don't remember what the Rescue the Republic event was, it was that thing that Brett Weinstein claims he organized all by himself. And it was this Washington, D.C. thing that had really elaborate backdrop where they taught you all about the medical industrial complex and the military industrial complex and the biopharmaceutical industrial complex. And holy shit, was it a bullshit show. And they even raised a lot of money for it, and paid themselves money and had bands, and it was just gross. It was just absolutely gross. Such a joke. And here he is, I was there.
And he thinks there's a lot of promising applications of it, and probably have
a lot of people using it. They basically use it as a periodic reset that they believe helps them focus quite a bit more, focus their mind. And some people think that it's helpful with depression and other things, other.
And they're not being very specific here, but generally speaking, from the reading that I've done, what they're talking about is microdosing with these things. They're not talking about heavy trips. They're not, resetting with every week, eating a candy bar full of psilocybin mushrooms. They're talking about microdosing these things. Some people even are microdosing LSD, which I'm not going to advocate for or say is bad or good or what happens when it does it. But these are the kinds of things that make me wonder what is really happening here. It might just be that they're desensitizing you to the idea that people can use these things, which would then desensitize your kids to the idea that people could use these things, and that it's normal for people to use these things. You might not even know. There might be somebody in your employee circle or in your friend circle that microdoses regularly, and that might be all the illusion they're trying to do here.
Kind of, in many ways, it's somewhat similar to how people used to use lysergic acid diethylamide during the 60s and 70s.
I wonder how long he practiced to say that. That's LSD.
LSD.
Oh, just so.
A quick question: How, to the extent that you can share this publicly, because we talked about this over the phone briefly before you did this, how was the conversation with this UK-based platform for streaming? Does that look promising?
So the name of the launched application is OneVSP, as in video streaming platform. And it's a fascinating approach. It relates to the things I've been writing about the splinternet, the splintering of the internet.
The splinternet, the splintering of the internet. You see, now they're going to try and create the illusion that these different countries are creating different sort of environments that you're going to have to stream in. And now he's advocating for finding different streaming platforms in different regions of the world so that you can safely conform with the different requirements of the different regions of the world that are inevitably coming on the internet. Think about that. That's like an announcement. That's like you got to accept the fact that you might not be able to stream to people in the UK if you talk about certain things because the UK's laws are going to change. He's making announcements for them and showing you how he is getting ahead of the schedule. It's like a business opportunity.
And all of the things that are driving the splintering of the internet, one of which is changes in kind of the idiosyncratic changes in national legislation, law, policy relating to censorship, because we now have a situation where instead of a global internet, we have one that is parsed into regions by censorship policy. And so in a strange way, kind of a unanticipated way for me, that creates business opportunities. That may seem...
Why does that create business opportunities for somebody who is a horse breeder and a homesteader and an emu breeder and somebody who has historically worked on things like, I don't know, the DITRA program domain to find and identify repurposed drugs from the entire catalog of the FDA using AI and machine learning and computer-generated models of X-ray crystallography? Why in the world would somebody with that skill set that could get a team spun up in less than 3 weeks to identify famotidine, ivermectin, celecoxib, and I'm going to forget one because I said about it, and remdesivir. Why would he now be interested in streaming platforms and why was he traveling the world for 6 years? Why did he stream with so many people and do so many in-person podcasts in the Netherlands? Why was he filmed in the mountains of Spain with Geert Vandenbosch while he was wearing a weird kind of taxi cab beret, riding horses through the mountains of Spain? Because Robert Malone is an internationally recognized script coordinator in this. He was sent to every country where people needed to be vetted and put on script. Just like I suspect Kevin McKernan may have briefed a lot of people over Zoom who needed to be briefed about this script. But that's how this works. And Robert Malone here right now should not be here right now. The only reason why he still has to play this role is because this train is so far off the tracks and this cruise ship is so about to crash into the harbor. It's really absurd.
Seem a little surprising to you, but or to the general listener. But what's going on here is that the large social media platforms and other applications that have been built under the assumption that we have basically a global internet that has one set of protocols. That was the whole logic of the ISPs, the Harmonization Committee for the URLs, etc.
Now, it might seem odd that he knows so much about this, but it's not actually, because way back when he set up the computer infrastructure for the Winberg Cancer Institute, which was going to be kind of a mirror for all the military cancer data coming out of Walter Reed on a very high-speed internet connection. I mean, he trained this couple from somewhere in Africa to kind of help him run the lab there and stuff. It's a really interesting part of his resume that nobody really wants to talk about. And now there's this dude who owns the place who's, I don't know, he's some kind of Chinese guy, Shuang Susong or whatever. He's also a scripted fool that has been put in place and is trusting the script. This is not by accident that all of these things just happen to fall out of Robert Malone's resume, but only onto Housatonic ITS's website and only onto his program or mine. It's not by accident. It's because we are, quite frankly, the only two people who are willing to say that the health freedom movement in America is fake. And even the fracturing of it right now on the rift of RNA and the Health and Human Service Secretary should have banned these already a long time ago is a fake rift.
To make one global platform that was interchangeable, interoperable. And with the advent of these legal policies having to do with censorship from the European Union, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and it's really evolving down into, and of course, China. Every nation state having its own idiosyncratic laws and policies. What that creates is the technical term is a lot of friction in terms of the business model for these very large integrated internet companies, platform companies like Google, and of course X, notably. So what's happening, BitChute is another one. BitChute got basically kicked out of the UK because it was not willing to comply with UK guidance and laws having to do with content and content censorship. And so what this creates is a opportunity for regional platforms to spring up that are aligned and compliant with local law.
Now, I would make the comment that it actually encourages people to do like I'm doing, which is to start a completely independent Brightweb, where you just host your own videos on your own servers, you pay for that server time, and then you use a really low depth, not very fancy, no algorithm, no login, just here's my channel, and those channels can link to other channels. You can follow whoever you want to on an open source thing, and there's no more global social media giants. There's no more censorship the way that it's done now. And there's no illusion of consensus that can be created by people employed to do it. And it's not just these bot farms. It's actually people like Robert Malone and people on his script who then go on podcast after podcast after podcast. If you put down the number of hours that Jessica Rose or Kevin McKernan or Pierre Corey or Robert Malone has done in the last 6 years, it would immediately become obvious that something's not right. If you were to put down the pages and pages, word by word, of all the Substacks that these people have put out on the background of all those podcasts that they put out and on background of all those interviews they've done, it would not make any sense. When do they have time to eat? Now put in all of their geographic travel, how many different places they've been and when they were during all those years, 2020, 21, 22, and who they went with. And it is impossible to look at anything other than an elaborate hoax orchestrated on both sides, all sides, including this health freedom movement. And what you see here is their struggle to make this script seem plausible still in 2025 when it is indeed not.
Guidance. So if the UK has certain criteria for what is prohibited there, that differs from the United States, that differs from the European Union, et cetera, that creates a business opportunity for a company to set up capabilities in video streaming, in social media, et cetera, that are aligned with that compartment. And of course, on top of that, as if that is...
What a bunch of bullshit. You can have StreamYard and go on Twitch right now, and there's no censorship on Twitch. I've never gotten a strike there, not once. Sometimes they mute my music, but that's it. This is a need that doesn't exist. He is advocating for the splintering of the internet into ever smaller, privately controlled parts, instead of advocating for the federated, real internet, kind of like a MySpace, but an updated version of it, where everybody, can just link with their trusted network defined by people that they share and not by any algorithm or programming, no logins, nothing. Think about what I'm offering right now and have actually been offering for more than a year and a half now, and how different it is from all of these shysters.
Isn't bad enough regarding the Splinternet, these kind of national boundaries that are being erected. We also
I think he's really proud of the term splinternet, so he's probably going to repeat it a couple more times. Gosh, I can't wait to go to the gym. Holy man, I feel good.
Also have the algorithms that have been reinforcing the development of, we could call them community pods.
Oh, it's all the algorithms' fault. The algorithms have enforced the development of community pods.
Stop lying!
These much smaller groups, and much of that, one of the terms that's used to refer to that, of course, we got the algorithmic things that make it so that you mostly only talk to people that have similar opinions to yours. But beyond that, there is, we call it shadow banning. Another term is small rooming, in which a person, like, for instance, just take myself, not to...
Small rooming. What is he about to say? What they did to me with the Defender podcast when him and Jessica Rose and Meryl Nass and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tess Laurie all ganged up on me to try and seem like I didn't have any really good ideas. We had all been saying that for a while now. It's cool, though, Jonathan. Welcome to the club. Thanks for catching up.
Stop lying!
Here we go. Tell me what they do to you. How do they mess with you, Robert?
Make it about me, but I'm a convenient example. I technically have 1.3 plus million followers on X, and many of those are international. But if you talk to the people that follow me internationally and many of the people that follow me in the States, they never see anything I post.
Oh my gosh, he's got all these followers, but they don't ever see what he posts because the censorship of the algorithms is so rough. And that's just absurd. Exactly everyone that needs to see Robert Malone in exactly every language has seen Robert Malone in the last 6 years. And you can bet your bottom dollar on it. And it doesn't matter whether it's German speakers, Dutch speakers, Austrian speakers, Finnish speakers. Everybody on the social media that required to see Robert Malone has seen him. This is full, 100% full court press bullshit right here.
Because the algorithm has created a structure wherein
the algorithm created a structure instead of the owners and programmers of the social media did. Do you see how stupid it is?
Only allowed to talk to about 20 to 30,000 people. Now, for many people, that's quite a bit, but it's a long way from...
He sounded like a horse there.
1.3 million. And so this creates echo chambers, of course, and it creates a sense for many people that they think that they're communicating to a much broader audience than they are, and that their opinions are much more prevalent, approved of, liked, etc. We could call it mainstream, than they really are, because what they are...
He is claiming that they do to him exactly what they do to Mark and I and only a few other people. They're not doing it to Mary Talley Bowden. They're not doing it to Joe Rogan. They're not doing it to Pierre Corey. They're not doing it to Peter McCullough. They're not doing it to the Wellness Company. They're not doing it to Ian Carroll. Even though he calls his podcast Cancel Ian Carroll, they're not doing that to him. They're not doing it to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or to Mary Holland or to CHD or to any of them. They are using the programming, the algorithm, the programming, your clicks and preferences to make sure that everybody who needed to see Robert Malone and CHD and ICANN and Peter McCullough and Pierre Corey have seen them in the last 6 years. And that has been fine-tuned over the last 5 years. And for this guy to have the audacity to be complaining the way he is now is because of me. Because now they will use social media to put this in front of anybody who they can. And Brett Weinstein saying the same thing, put it in front of anybody they can to make it seem like they were actually censored. They are actually being censored right now. He's got 1 million followers, but he can't reach them. As if that's the way censorship works.
They're in an echo chamber, and they're only talking to people that are either very aligned with them or very opposed to them. The people that are angry at them, they also get let into the room because they're interacting. And so the
See, and the interacting is what I just talked about in my earlier segment. The interacting between Norman and McKernan to the point where they block each other. That's all fake. Just like Jessica Hockett on her Substack responding to all of these people on their Substacks, like Pierre Corey and Jay Bhattacharya and all these. It's all fake. And more importantly, that fake theater occurs very specifically on X and Substack and Locals because those are the social media platforms that these people are paid to make relevant. If they were paid to make Blue Sky relevant, then they would be on Blue Sky. But they're paid to be on Rumble instead. All owned by the same people who are behind Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and the very scripted fake Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's essentially just a Truman Show because he believed Mary Holland, Meryl Nass, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Pierre Corey, Peter McCullough, and Brian Hooker. And Andrew Wakefield and Polly Tommy, instead of believing Brandy Vaughn and Tony Bark.
Consequence of this is that we're having layers of splintering in the internet, and one VSP has figured out a way to address that as a business model in the UK space. And what that teaches, really, is that there are business opportunities for companies to solve and provide services, solve these problems in every one of these compartmentalized nation-state geographic boundaries, which is a kind of a...
So I think starting a nonprofit that would specifically help people start their own PeerTube and promote it, I think is the perfect way to get moving. And that's what we're going to do. And I don't mind announcing it because I think telling the truth is the way that I'm going to get the support. I can't keep it secret because no one else is going to steal the idea because it's exactly what they don't want. They don't want a nonprofit that's going to support people like Mark Kulak or Joe Marshall. They don't want a nonprofit that would do that would be run by me. They don't want me to have $1 million to play with because Lord knows what I would do with it. These people are in big trouble, ladies and gentlemen, because it's not going to stop. The nonprofit is going to exist. And once it does, and we start building a PeerTube network in America of independent analysts and coaches and teachers and journalists, they won't be able to, this illusion will be broken. Malone News on Substack, my ass.
Fascinating thing. It means that you can't have the scalability of an X where you have international reach, but you can still build a substantial company just serving your local region.
I don't even know what that means. I'm doing it. Everybody around the world can get to my PeerTube, can download the app, can load my PeerTube onto it, and then they're going to get instant free access without login and with no algorithms. It's so weird. No personal data at all.
And so this is going to be a video platform, and you were talking about creating content on there?
So the truth is they mostly...
I mean, this video is edited and it's still ridiculously slow. Holy shit.
I was asked to go out there by Kat Lindley, who is an ambassador for the application and the company. And the founder, Mo, short for Mohammed, who owns the majority of the shares, but he has significant investors.
So the guy who's running the thing is called Muhammad with significant investors. I mean, we do not need $1 million at the independent Brightweb. We don't need $1 million at all. I threw that money number out there as a joke. I mean, the independent Brightweb and building PeerTubes for people might cost me between $500 and $1,000 per instance, as far as I know. And in the building of the first couple instances, I will make it a part of my role to learn how it's done so that we don't have to employ a lot of IT expertise to set this stuff up in the end. Once we know how it's done, once I've troubleshotted a couple times with somebody who helped me set up mine, that I could basically be the IT guy for it and help people set it up and learn. It's not impossible. I've done other things like this. So between having this friend and supporter, longtime friend Ted, having my longtime friend in Pittsburgh, also a very, skilled IT guy from the same department that I was fired from, who's now working somewhere else. I have enough resources around me that this is a very doable goal. And on top of that, think about the idea that we can also start developing this high school curriculum and also maybe even write a book. This is going to happen, and these people are going to have to live the rest of their lives knowing that the truth of their deception and their fake it till they make it exercise is available.
Wants me and others to be providing content. It's a little non-traditional for a video streaming platform like, say, BitChute or Rumble. He's really not looking for the business model to be truly open to all that would wish to upload content. He wants to concentrate more on people and business niches that are going to be more popular and that can be monetized through pay-per-view. So, for instance, he has Formula One and Formula 4 racing. He has celebrity boxing. And these kinds of things that are popular, very popular in the UK. I suspect he will have football at some point, what we call soccer in the States.
Yeah.
So that's his business.
Jay Bhattacharya, head of NIH, started a Substack and podcast with this guy who was originally promoted by Brett Weinstein, using a phrase probably stolen directly from Gigaohm Biological's presentations at the time. And now, in the middle of 2025, the guy that I've been calling a traitor since the end of 2022, sure that he was working somehow against us, but not sure how, has now, in my mind, revealed himself as the script coordinator for the entire diverse cast that ranges from Kevin McCairn and George Webb and Paul Cottrell and Addie Ads, all the way to Catherine Watt, Sasha Latipova, Meryl Nass, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Mary Holland. To ICANN, and also to the No Virus people who were on several streams opposite them in 2021. That's right, Andy Kaufman, Tom Cowan, Christine Massey, and the Baileys from New Zealand. It's all one international bullshit show, coordinated by this man.
Business model is it's more of a fusion between a video streaming platform concept and a...
There is no way that these people don't understand that an anticipated rise in all-cause mortality existed in the background, was waiting to be used, to be leveraged. There's no way that Robert Malone doesn't understand that the timing of the initiation of the pandemic was perfectly timed with that anticipated rise in all-cause mortality, so that the minimum amount of manslaughter would be necessary to sculpt this anticipated rise in all-cause mortality with that manslaughter and lies. There's no way it's possible that Robert Malone doesn't understand that making a list to describe how this anticipated rise in all-cause mortality was sculpted using manslaughter and lies would be the best way forward. And that's why nobody on his script has ever made this list. That's why nobody on his script has never gotten to the stage where they question the use of supplementary oxygen. No one's ever gotten to the stage where they question the blanket disuse of antibiotics. No one on his script has ever bothered to do the simple math of the opioid pandemic, epidemic, whatever. This list has never been assembled by the people on the script because their script doesn't contain a synopsis. It doesn't contain a general elevator pitch. It contains specific talking points that they stick to, so that nobody ever realizes endemicity is just a myth as both a process and an endpoint. That nobody ever realizes that all these pharmaceutical manufacturing veterans know that the easiest way to pull this off would have been make placebos for shit's sake. And none of these people have ever been able to enunciate that a non-specific PCR test on an infinite background would be a really easy way to make people think they were chasing ghosts and had become Ghostbusters. Just me. That's it. Nobody else. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is Gigaohm Biological, a high-resistance, low-noise information brief brought to you by a biologist. I will be here tomorrow. Sorry for the downer for the last 3 days. It's been rough. And sorry for briefly dropping the ball with my professionalism and swearing as much as I did in the last couple streams. I'll try to avoid that in the future. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for being here tomorrow. Any donations of cask strength can be sent to P.O. Box 802 Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102. That's 802 Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102. Cask strength definitely accepted. All sizes. Ladies and gentlemen, intramuscular injection of any combination of substances with the intent of augmenting the immune system is dumb. And the voice that you hear is Jonathan Couey. I'm Chief Biologist at Gigaohm Biological, coming to you live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can use my last name on PubMed to find out what I did as an academic. And you can also buy that book, Wuhan Cover-Up, and find out how desperately they were for me to be the lab leak guy. And instead, I guess it's still Robert Malone and Kevin McKernan. Thanks very much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. I have a YouTube channel. I think I'm on the first one there, JC on a Bike. But I'm not on Woods, but I could be again, depending on whether I get strikes. And in case you're not aware, the most important thing is to share this work. Please share PeerTube. Show your family and friends how to download that little app and how they can pay attention without... Please send them to GigaOhmBiological.com. We need all the support we can get. We're going to keep going, but it'll make it a lot easier and make me a lot more enthusiastic if I'm not running my freaking credit card bill to the end. Thank you very much for being here. See you soon.